I was 10 years old the first time I told Harper I would marry her. I was joking. She was not. Now I am 24, standing in the same backyard where I said those words, and I am starting to wonder if that promise ever really died. My name is Eli Grayson. I grew up in a tiny town in Nebraska called Willow Creek. It sits between endless cornfields and long, flat roads that seem to spill straight into the sky. It is the kind of place where people leave their front doors unlocked, and everybody knows what you had for dinner before you finish eating it. Mornings there start with the sound of school buses and sprinklers. Afternoons smell like cut grass and gasoline from old trucks. Evenings are porch lights, kids on bikes, and that soft orange glow that makes every house look like a picture in a calendar. When I was a kid, I wanted to escape it. Now, after 6 years away, I have come back, and it feels like the town has been waiting for me. The last 6 years I spent in Chicago trying to build a bigger life. 4 years of college, studying economics because it sounded serious. Then office jobs in tall buildings where I stared at spreadsheets until my eyes burned. I rode crowded trains with people who never looked up from their phones. I ate lunch at my desk. I stayed late to impress bosses who probably forgot my name as soon as I left. Everyone said I was lucky. Big city, good pay. But most nights I would sit in my small rented room listening to traffic and feel like I was slowly going numb. One day I looked around at my life and could not recognize myself in it. So I quit my job, packed my old truck, and drove back to Willow Creek without a real plan. I told my parents I needed some time to figure things out. Truth was, I needed to remember who I was before I started chasing someone else's idea of success. My parents live at the end of Laurel Street. There are maple trees on both sides that turn bright red in the fall. Their white house looks the same as it did when I was a kid, right down to the green moss on the porch steps. Dad still listens to classic rock in the garage while he works on broken lawnmowers. Mom still makes coffee so strong it could wake the dead. When I pulled into the driveway that first day back, Dad came out wiping his hands on a rag, grinning like a kid. "You came home," he said, clapping my shoulder so hard I almost dropped my bag. Mom hugged me tight, like she was afraid I would vanish if she let go. "You look tired," she said. "I am making apple pie tonight." They did not ask why I left Chicago. They did not ask what my big plan was. They just showed me my old room, with the faded posters still on the walls, and told me to rest. Standing at my bedroom window that night, I saw it. The white picket fence that runs along the back of our yard and straight into the yard next door. Harper's yard. Harper Dawson has been my neighbor since before I can remember. Our moms were best friends. There are pictures of us as toddlers, sitting in a plastic kiddie pool, splashing each other and grinning with missing teeth. I remember the first time I really noticed her. We were maybe 7. I fell out of the big oak tree in our yard and scraped my knee. It stung so bad that my eyes filled with tears. Before I could start crying, Harper came charging over from her yard with a bandage in her hand. "Do not cry, Eli," she said in this serious little voice. "Heroes do not cry." She stuck the bandage on my knee, crooked and too big, and just like that, I decided she was my best friend. Summers with her were the best part of my childhood. We built forts from sheets and old branches. We had water gun fights until we were soaked, and our moms yelled at us to come in. At night we would lie in the grass, side by side, counting stars and talking about what we wanted to be when we grew up. I said astronaut. She said writer. I wanted to leave town. She wanted to write stories about leaving and coming back. Winters were all snowmen and hot cocoa. We would watch movies on her family's old TV, argue over Disney characters, and fall asleep on the couch while our moms talked in the kitchen. But the day that keeps replaying in my mind now is that June afternoon when we were 10. The town fair was in full swing. The air smelled like popcorn and cotton candy. Kids ran past with balloons and sticky fingers. I won a cheap plastic ring at one of those claw machines, the kind with a fake diamond that sparkled under the lights. Harper was wearing a yellow sundress and holding her cat-themed stuffed animal under one arm. Her hair was in pigtails, a little crooked from the long day. I do not know what came over me, but I walked up, heart pounding, and held out the ring. "When we grow up, I am going to marry you," I said, trying to sound brave. "Promise you will not marry anyone else." For a second, she just stared at me, eyes wide. Then she laughed, but it was not a mean laugh. She took the ring and slipped it onto her pinky finger because it was too big for the others. Her face turned serious. "Okay, Eli," she said. "But if you break that promise, you owe me ice cream for the whole school." We even wrote it down later. Scribbled it on a piece of notebook paper with crayons, drawing crooked hearts in the corners. We put the paper and a few treasures into an old shoebox and hid it in her attic. We called it the secret promise box. As we got older, that moment turned into a joke. In middle school, we drifted a little. I joined the basketball team and started hanging out with the guys. She spent more time at the library, reading under the maple tree. We still talked, still waved from our bedroom windows, but the promise started to feel like something from another life. Then high school flew by. Then Chicago. Then 6 years without really seeing her. The day I came back to Willow Creek, I did not know what to expect from her. Maybe she had moved away. Maybe she was married. Maybe she barely remembered me. I was hauling my bags from the truck when I heard a voice behind me. "Eli Grayson, is that actually you?" I turned and there she was, leaning on the fence between our yards, smiling like the sun had just come out. Her hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail. She wore jeans and a simple blue t-shirt. She looked older, sure, but still like Harper. Same bright eyes. Same easy grin. "Hey, Harper," I said, feeling warmth spread through my chest. "Long time." Quote, "About 6 years too long," she said. "So what is it this time? Short visit, or are you staying?" "This time I am home," I said. "For real. No set end date." Her smile softened. "Good," she said. "Willow Creek missed you." We talked for a while over the fence. She still worked at the library. She still baked pies for the farmer's market. I told her half-truths about Chicago, leaving out the parts where I felt empty. When she headed back inside, I watched her go, a strange twist in my chest. That night, lying in my old bed, I stared up at the same cracks in the ceiling I used to count as a kid. I thought about a plastic ring, a crayon contract, and a girl in a yellow dress who had said, "Okay, Eli, but do not break your promise." I had told myself for years that it was just a childish joke. For the first time, I started to wonder if Harper had ever really treated it that way, and if coming home meant I was about to find out. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight spilling across my old bedroom and the smell of Mom's coffee drifting up the stairs. For the first time in a long time, I did not feel rushed. No alarms, no inbox full of angry emails, no train to catch, just quiet. I pulled on a t-shirt and shorts, laced up my running shoes, and decided to jog around the neighborhood like I used to in high school. The air was cool, with that clean, small-town smell of dew on grass and distant wood smoke. My breath puffed in front of me as I started down Laurel Street. I was passing Harper's house when her front door opened. "Eli," she called, tying her ponytail tighter. Perfect timing. She jogged down her porch steps in running shoes and a faded gray hoodie. "You running the loop around the lake?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. That was the plan. "Good," she replied. "You are not getting out of it. Come on." Just like that, we fell into step side by side, heading toward the small lake at the edge of town. The sky was pale blue, a few clouds drifting like they had nowhere urgent to be. Birds chirped, sprinklers hissed on nearby lawns. It felt strange how easy it was. 6 years gone, and it was like my feet still knew the path and my heart still knew the rhythm of running next to her. She talked while we ran. Harper always did like to fill silence. "You picked a good time to come back," she said. "Old man Harris finally sold his grocery store. Some couple from Lincoln opened a cafe inside it. Fancy coffee and everything. People are treating it like a tourist attraction." I laughed. "Willow Creek with a fancy cafe, that is new." She nodded. "We even have oat milk now. The town is evolving." She asked about Chicago and I told her a little. "Enough to paint the picture, not enough to show the emptiness. It sounds big," she said, "and busy and loud." It is all of that, I said. Some days it was exciting. Some days I felt like a single dot in a huge spreadsheet that no one would miss if they deleted. She looked over at me, her ponytail swinging. You always liked being useful, she said, not just productive. Those are different things. Her words hit a little deeper than I expected. She had always seen me clearly, even as kids. We reached the path that circled the lake and slowed to a walk. The water was calm. A few ducks floated near the shore. The air smelled like mud and trees and something sweet I could not name. So what is the plan now? She asked, kicking a small stone along the path. Back for good or just for a while? I do not know yet, I admitted. Dad can use the help around the house. I might pick up some work in town. I just knew I could not do another year of staring at office walls. She nodded, not judging, just listening. You do not have to have it all figured out, she said. Sometimes coming home is enough of a plan to start. We walked a while in comfortable silence, our steps matching without effort. That felt strange and right at the same time. After the run, we headed to the diner on Main Street, the same one we used to haunt in high school after games. The booths were still red vinyl. The waitress still called everyone honey. Harper ordered a cappuccino with extra foam and a blueberry muffin. I ordered an iced latte even though the morning was still cool. Habit. We took a booth by the window and watched the slow traffic crawl by. A tractor, a couple of pickups, a kid on a bike with a baseball glove hanging from his handlebar. Talking to her felt easy. I told her about messing up the subway my first month in Chicago and ending up in some random neighborhood an hour from where I was supposed to be. She laughed so hard she had to wipe her eyes. She told me about the summer reading program at the library. About kids who checked out 15 books at once and brought them back a week later asking for more. About how she sometimes stayed late just to enjoy the quiet rows of shelves. You sound happy when you talk about it, I said. She shrugged, smiling. It is simple, she said. People come in looking for a story, and I get to hand them one. That feels good. I watched her as she talked, the way her hands moved when she got excited, the way she tilted her head when she asked me something serious. She had grown up, but parts of the girl I knew were still there, just hidden under new layers. That afternoon, I went out back to tackle the jungle that used to be our yard. Dad's arthritis made it tough for him to keep up, and the weeds had taken full advantage. I pulled on gloves and started ripping out tall grass along the fence line. You missed a spot, a voice called. I looked up to see Harper leaning over the fence again, this time in a tank top and shorts, hair piled on top of her head in a messy bun. She had gardening gloves on and a pair of clippers in her hand. You need help? She asked. Or are you going to pretend you have this under control? I have it under control, I said, wiping sweat from my forehead. She raised an eyebrow. Aha! That is why you are losing a battle with a dandelion. She hopped the fence before I could answer and landed on my side, light on her feet. She smelled like soap and cut grass. We worked side by side, pulling weeds, trimming hedges, and complaining about roots that seemed to go to the center of the earth. We laughed, shoved each other with our shoulders, and ended up with dirt on our faces. At one point, I slipped on a patch of loose dirt and stumbled. Her hand shot out to steady my arm. For a second, her finger stayed there, warm on my skin. We both stilled. Careful, she said softly. Thanks, I replied. She let go and bent back down to yank out another weed, but my pulse stayed a little faster after that. As the sun dipped low, Mom brought out lemonade, and we collapsed on the back steps. Our legs were sore, our hands were dirty. The yard actually looked like a yard again. Remember the forts we built back here? Harper asked, sipping her drink. We used to say this part of the yard was our castle. And I always had to be the dragon, I said. You never let me be the knight. Someone had to guard the treasure, she replied. You were good at being loud and scary. We both laughed, but there was a softness in her eyes now, a warmth that made my chest feel tight. As the sky turned orange, she set her empty glass down. You know, she said, I still have it. Have what? I asked. She looked toward her house. The promise box. In the attic, with a contract and everything. For a second I thought she was joking. Then I saw the way her face shifted, a little shy, a little serious. "You kept that?" I asked. "Come see," she said, standing up. We went into her house, the smell of books and cinnamon hitting me as soon as we stepped inside. The furniture was familiar but older, more worn. Family pictures lined the hallway, her with her parents, her holding trophies from school. A few photos with me, both of us grinning with braces. We climbed the narrow stairs to the attic. It was hot and dusty, filled with boxes of Christmas decorations, old toys, and things no one wanted to throw away. "There," she said, pointing to a corner. She knelt beside a faded cardboard box with our childhood drawings on the lid. Hearts. Stars. The words, "Top Secret," in crooked letters. She opened it carefully like it might fall apart. Inside were dried flowers, a couple of marbles, a rubber dinosaur, and at the bottom, a folded sheet of notebook paper. She unfolded it and read in a mock serious voice, "Eli promises to marry Harper when we are big. No takebacks." We both laughed, but her voice softened as she traced the edges of the paper with her thumb. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled something out. A small plastic ring with a scratched fake diamond, the same one from the fair. "I kept this too," she said quietly, "all this time." I stared at it, my throat tight. "I thought you would forget," I said. She shook her head. "You were the first person who ever promised to stay," she said. "Maybe it was a silly kid thing to you, but to me it meant a lot back then." The attic felt smaller, filled with dust and old air, and 100 memories pressing in at once. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment the years dropped away. It was her in the yellow sundress again, holding out her pinky with that ring. We put the paper back in the box. She slipped the ring into her pocket again like it was still something precious. As we climbed down the stairs, I realized I was seeing her with new eyes, not just as the girl from next door or my old friend, but as someone who had carried pieces of our childhood with her even when I had walked away. On the back porch, as the first fireflies started to blink in the yard, she walked me to the fence. "Thanks for today," she said. "It is good having you back, Eli." "Yeah," I said. "It is good being back." That night, lying in my old bed, I could not stop thinking about that ring in her pocket, about the way her voice had changed when she said I was the first person who promised to stay. The promise we made as kids was a joke on paper, but in her heart it had been something real. And for the first time I wondered if coming home was not just about fixing my life. Maybe it was also about figuring out what that promise still meant to both of us now. The days after we opened that promise box felt different, even if nothing huge changed on the surface. The town still moved in its slow Willow Creek way. Sprinklers clicked on in the mornings, kids rode bikes down Laurel Street, and the diner still smelled like bacon and burnt coffee. But between Harper and me, something had shifted. I started helping Dad with repairs around the house in the mornings. In the afternoons, I always seemed to drift toward the white fence. Sometimes I had a real reason, sometimes I did not. Harper never seemed surprised. One Saturday, she called over, "Hey, Eli, you busy?" I was not, but I pretended to think. "Depends. Is there manual labor involved?" She laughed and pointed toward the back of her yard. "I want to clear the old bike path, the one behind our houses. For old time's sake." The path used to be our racetrack. When we were kids, we would ride rusty bikes down the narrow gravel strip, yelling and daring each other to go faster. Now weeds choked most of it. Grass grew high enough to hide the old tire marks. We grabbed tools from both sheds. She took clippers and a rake. I took a shovel and a stubborn pride that said I could handle anything nature threw at me. The sun was high. Sweat rolled down my back. We hacked through brush, yanked stubborn roots, and kicked loose rocks out of the way. Every now and then, our hands brushed when we reached for the same branch. Every time it happened, something hot and sharp moved through my chest. At one point, I stepped on a loose rock, and my foot slid. I pitched forward, and before I could fall, Harper grabbed my arm with both hands, digging her heels into the dirt. We froze like that for a second, her fingers tight around my skin, our faces closer than they had been in years. "Got you," she said, a little breathless. Guess I still need saving, I said. Her eyes held mine longer than a friendly second. Then she let go and turned back to the brush, but her cheeks had gone a little pink. By the time we finished, the path looked almost like it used to. We walked our bikes along it as the sun dipped, pushing them side by side. Our shoulders bumped now and then. Neither of us moved away. I started to notice more small things about her. The way she always checked her phone around 5 in the evening. The way her smile dimmed right after, like she had forced it to stay bright all day. One afternoon, when I asked what she had planned, she said, "I am heading to the nursing home. Dad is having a good week. That is what they say." Her voice was light, but I heard the strain under it. I knew about her dad's Alzheimer's, of course. Mom had mentioned it on the phone over the years. I knew Harper had stayed in Willow Creek after high school instead of taking a scholarship somewhere else. I knew she worked at the library partly because it let her be close. What I did not know was what that looked like up close. A few days later, I got off my part-time shift at the hardware store and drove past the Willow Creek nursing home on the way back. I told myself it was on the route. It really was not. I turned anyway. The building was small and clean, with a little garden out back. As I slowed near the side gate, I saw her. Harper sat alone on a bench under a tree, elbows on her knees, head in her hands. Her shoulders shook just a little. For a second, I thought about getting out and walking straight over. Instead, something stopped me. She looked like she needed space, as much as she needed someone. I got out with my heart pounding anyway, walked past her bench like I just happened to be there, and slipped a folded receipt into her hand. "If you need a ride home or just someone to sit with," I said quietly, "I am around." She jerked her head up, eyes red, surprised. Our eyes met for half a second. She did not say anything. I did not wait for her to. I just kept walking toward the parking lot. That night, I sat at our kitchen table staring at my phone. No text. I told myself it was fine. Maybe she had gone straight home. Maybe she did not want to talk. I was halfway through a late sandwich when there was a soft knock at the back door. I opened it to find her standing there in a hoodie, hair pulled into a messy knot, eyes still a little puffy. "Can I come in?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, stepping aside. Of course. We ended up at the same table where my parents drank their morning coffee, 2 mugs of tea between us. Harper wrapped her hands around hers like she was trying to pull warmth into her bones. "He did not know me today," she said after a long silence. "Dad, he called me by Mom's name." Then he got confused and asked where she was. "She has been gone for years, Eli." I had to tell him again. It was like watching his heart break and then mine right after. Her voice cracked on the last words. She blinked hard, but a tear slid down her cheek anyway. I did not fill the silence. I just watched her, hurting, and let her talk. "I stayed," she said. "When you left, when everybody left, I stayed. I do not regret it. But some days I am so tired. I feel like I am holding back a river with my bare hands, and I do not know how much longer I can pretend it is easy." "You do not have to pretend with me," I said softly. She stared at the table. "I had a boyfriend once," she went on, "a few years ago, from the next town. He talked about moving somewhere bigger, about starting fresh. When Dad got worse, and I said I could not leave Willow Creek, he said he had not signed up for that. For small-town life and nursing home visits. Then he walked away." Quote, "She let out a bitter little laugh that did not sound like her. "People always walk away," she said. "They say they will stay, but when it gets hard, they go find a softer life. It is not even that they are evil. They just choose easy." I reached across the table and laid my hand over hers. Her fingers were cold. She stared down at them like she had never seen our hands touching before. "I am not going to make some big speech," I said. "I am not 10 anymore. But I am here now. I am not running to Chicago. I am not trying to be somewhere else. If you need a ride, I will drive you. If you need someone to sit in that garden and say nothing, I can do that. If you need to yell at someone, I can do that too." Her hand trembled under mine. "You do not have to fix this," she whispered. I know, I said. I cannot fix it. But I can stay. She drew in a shaky breath, then another, like she was trying to decide whether to believe me. Finally, she slipped her hand free from under mine, but only so she could lace her fingers with mine instead. She squeezed. Hard. I do not know how to do this, she admitted. Let someone help. Let someone be there. We figure it out, I said. One day at a time. For a long while, we just sat like that. The kitchen was quiet. The only sound was the soft tick of the clock on the wall and the distant hum of Dad's radio in the garage. Eventually, she stood. I should go, she said softly. Your mom will think I moved in. She would be thrilled, I said. She likes you more than she likes me. That pulled a small smile from Harper. She stepped closer to the door, then paused. Eli, she said, turning back, do you ever wish you had never made that promise? The kid one, so you would not feel responsible now? The question caught me off guard. I thought about Chicago, about the office, about all the nights I had felt lonely in a crowded city. No, I said. I wish I had understood what I was saying back then. Maybe I would have come home sooner. Her eyes shone again, but this time there was something softer in them. Good night, Eli, she said. Good night, Harper. Quote, I watched from the porch window as she crossed the yard. The light from her kitchen flicked on a few minutes later, a warm square glowing against the dark. Lying in bed that night, I knew something in me had crossed a line. I was not just the boy next door who once joked about marrying the girl in the yellow dress. I was a man who had promised, in a quiet kitchen with 2 mugs of tea, that he would stay when things got hard. I could feel myself falling for her, deep and real. But I had no idea if Harper would ever trust that I would really keep that grown-up promise. And that question settled over me, like the night. Waiting for an answer, neither of us was ready to say out loud yet. The storm that night did not come with thunder or flashes of lightning. It was just steady rain, the kind that soaks the streets and makes everything outside your window look softer and blurrier than it really is. I had just settled in with a book when I heard it. A knock on the back door. Not loud, not urgent, just 3 careful taps. When I opened it, Harper stood there under the porch light, hood pulled over her hair, drops of rain clinging to her lashes. She was holding a covered dish that smelled like cheese and tomato. Lasagna, she said, trying to smile. I made too much. Thought you and your parents might want some. Her voice was light, but her eyes told a different story. They were tired. Shiny in a way that said she was one deep breath away from breaking. Come in, I said. She stepped into the warm kitchen, pushing her hood back. Damp strands of hair clung to her cheeks. I took the dish from her and set it on the counter. You okay? I asked. She let out a small laugh that did not sound like her. Loaded question. Fair, I said. Want to sit? We ended up at the table again. 2 plates of lasagna in front of us. She pushed her food around more than she ate it. The rain tapped steadily on the windows. The house was quiet. Mom and Dad had gone to bed early. After a while, she set her fork down and looked at me. Do you remember what I said in the attic? She asked. About that ring. About believing someone would stay. Yeah, I said softly. I remember. She stared at her hands. Today at the nursing home, she said, her voice thin. Dad thought I was Mom again. He grabbed my hand and asked when I was coming home from the store. I did not know whether to play along or tell him the truth. I chose the truth. He cried, and then forgot, and asked again 10 minutes later. Her breath hitched. I drove home and sat in the car for half an hour. I could not make myself go inside. I did not want to be alone with that. I felt something twist hard in my chest. Harper, I said, you could have called. I know, she said. I almost did, but calling feels like asking for too much. Showing up at your door with lasagna makes it look casual. Her smile this time was full of pain. I reached across the table and took her hand. She did not pull away. You are not asking for too much, I said. You are asking for what you deserve, to not do this alone. She watched my thumb move slowly across her knuckles. Eli, she said quietly, if I start leaning on you, really leaning, What happens when you decide it is too heavy? When you wake up one day and remember you once wanted to be an astronaut, and now you are stuck in Willow Creek with a girl whose life revolves around a library and a nursing home. Quote, "There it was, the fear under everything. Not just about her dad or the town, but about me, about the promise. 'Do you still want to date me?' she asked, echoing the same question from my head before I could answer. 'After days like this? After seeing all of it?' Quote, she met my eyes, and for the first time I saw it fully. Not just the girl who had patched my scrapes or the woman who held this town together in small ways. I saw someone who had carried so much loss that she no longer trusted good things to stay. I took a breath that felt like a step off a cliff. 'Yes,' I said. 'I still want to date you. I want to be with you, not just on the easy days, on the hard ones too.' 'You cannot just say that because you feel bad,' she said. 'Pity and love are not the same thing.' Quote, 'I know the difference,' I said. My voice was steady even though my heart was pounding. 'I love you, Harper.' The room went very quiet. The rain, the clock, even the hum of the fridge seemed to fade. 'You love me,' she repeated, like she was testing each word. 'I do,' I said. 'I did not come back to Willow Creek for you. I came back because I was lost. But somewhere between that first run around the lake and tonight, I realized the only time I feel like myself is when I am with you. You make this town feel like home again. You make me feel like more than a guy who quit his job and ran back to his parents. I love the way you care, even when it hurts. I love how you laugh when something is really funny and snort a little. I love that you kept a stupid plastic ring in your pocket for 14 years. Her eyes filled and spilled over. She looked at our joined hands, then back at me. 'I love you too,' she whispered. 'That is what scares me.' 'Why?' I asked, even though I already knew. 'Because I lost Mom,' she said. 'I am losing Dad a little more every week.' People leave, Eli. Or they stay for a while and then wake up and realize I am too tied down, too small, too broken. I do not know how to believe you will not do the same." I squeezed her hand gently. "I cannot promise that nothing bad will ever happen," I said. "Life does not work like that. But I can promise this. I am not here because of an old crayon contract. I am here because every day I get the choice to be somewhere else, and I keep choosing this, choosing you." Her lip trembled. She stood up suddenly, the chair scraping back, and walked around the table to me. I rose too, and we stood facing each other in the soft kitchen light. Her hoodie was still damp at the cuffs. Her eyes were red and shining. "Say it again," she whispered. "I love you," I said. She took my face in both hands, pulled me down, and kissed me. It was not a quick, nervous brush. It was slow and sure and real. Her fingers curled into my hair. My hand slid to the small of her back. The world outside the window disappeared. There was just the taste of rain and salt, and something sweet that felt like the start of a new life. When we finally pulled apart, she rested her forehead against mine. "Okay," she said quietly. "Then I am going to try to believe you. I am not good at this. I might pull back or freak out or say the wrong thing, but if you stay, I will learn." "I am not going anywhere," I said. We did not define anything that night with labels. We did not suddenly fix her dad's illness or my slow search for direction. But from that moment on, we moved together as more than two neighbors sharing a fence. Months passed. I picked up steady work helping a local contractor build decks and fix roofs around town. It was simple, honest work that left my muscles tired and my mind clear. Harper kept running story hours at the library, coming home with new books and stories about kids who reminded her of us. We started doing everything in pairs. Grocery runs, late-night walks with a stray dog that started hanging around our yards until we gave up and named him Rusty. He slept on my porch at first, then on hers, then somewhere in between like he could not choose. On bad days at the nursing home, I drove Harper there and waited in the garden, ready with a hug and a listening ear when she came out. On my bad days missing the life I thought I should have had, she sat with me on the back steps, and reminded me that building a real life in a small town took more courage than disappearing into a city crowd. One evening in early winter, snow began to fall in slow, soft flakes. We sat on my parents' porch swing, wrapped in one blanket, Rusty at our feet. The Christmas lights on both houses glowed against the snow. Harper reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the plastic ring. She turned it over in her fingers, the fake gem catching the light. "You know," she said, "for a long time this was the only proof I had that someone once promised to stay." I watched her face as she spoke, calm, a little sad, a little hopeful. "Do you still need it?" I asked. She thought for a moment, then shook her head. "I think I need something else now," she said softly. Not a promise from a 10-year-old. A choice from the man sitting next to me. Quote, "My heart beat faster. I reached into my own jacket pocket, where I had been keeping something for weeks, waiting for the right moment. I have been carrying this around," I said, pulling out a small box, "trying to figure out when to give it to you. I guess now is as good a time as any." Her eyes widened as I opened it. Inside was a simple silver ring, no big diamond. Just a thin band with a small carved pattern that looked like tiny leaves circling it. "I am not asking for a wedding tomorrow," I said, my voice low. "I am not promising some fairy tale. Life has already shown both of us that it does not always work that way. But I want you to know I am not here by accident or out of guilt. I choose you, Harper, not just for right now, for tomorrow, for as long as we both keep choosing each other." Her hand shook as she lifted the ring from the box. Snowflakes caught in her hair. Her eyes were full. "When we were kids," she said, "you made a promise you did not understand, and I held on to it like it meant everything. This time you know what you are saying." "I do," I said. She smiled through her tears, the same bright smile I remembered from that day at the fair, only deeper now, colored by everything we had been through. "Then yes," she whispered, "put it on." My fingers were clumsy in the cold, but I slid the ring onto her finger. It settled there like it had always belonged. She reached into her other pocket, pulled out the plastic ring one last time, and set it gently on the porch railing beside us. "That one was hope," she said. "This one is real." She leaned into me, resting her head on my shoulder as the snow kept falling. The porch light glowed around us. Rusty snuffled in his sleep. Somewhere inside, I could hear my parents moving around, their muffled voices, a steady background to this moment. I wrapped my arm around her and looked out at the quiet street. 2 houses, 1 fence. 1 girl who had waited without really knowing she was waiting. 1 boy who had finally come home for good. I joked once, under summer lights and the smell of cotton candy, that when we grew up, I would marry her. She had looked at me with those big eyes and said, "I hope you will keep that promise." Back then, I did not understand what it meant. Now, as I held her close and felt the steady beat of her heart against my side, I knew one thing with more certainty than anything in my life. I was grown up now, and I fully intended to keep it.